Welcome to Momentum, a motorsports podcast powered by High Gear Success. I'm your host, Heather Wilson Schiltz. Here we share the stories and strategies that keep the world of motorsports moving forward. Today's guest is Kristen Almer, Executive Director of RideSafe Foundation. So Kristen, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
We've actually had the pleasure, at least once, at a safety conference to meet in person, but we actually go back quite a few years now.
We've both been involved in motorsports for so long, so invariably we're going to run across each other. But yeah, I'm excited to hear about your new adventure as also with this podcast, and we're glad to be here.
Yes, thank you. So kind of setting a little bit of back history for the RideSafe Foundation. In 2013, your 11-year-old nephew, Logan, was tragically killed in an ATV accident. So can you tell us a little bit about Logan and how that ignited something in you to become such a big advocate of ATV safety?
Yeah, so Memorial Weekend, May the 24th, we were in northern Wisconsin getting ready for, what you think is going to be a great, wonderful weekend. It turned out to be the worst day of our lives. Yeah, Logan was 11 years old and had gotten off the school bus, last day of school for them. And his dad's adult-sized ATV was parked in the driveway. The ATV had been on the property most of Logan's life. His father was meticulous, particularly with securing the key and making sure that vehicle wasn't accessible to the children. But on that particular day, he had the intention of teaching his older son how to ride, so he had put it in the driveway with that intention. And Logan was able to locate the key while Dad was at work and Mom was on a walk, and the babysitter was in the house, and Logan got out and he was able to locate the key and start that machine. And his life was over within a matter of minutes. It didn't take long. We don't know exactly what happened, but you can pretty much ascertain the details. We know he started it and he hit the throttle, and when he did, Logan, it scared him. It's a big, powerful machine. When he pinned the throttle, and when he did that, they have a fear response when they're young like that and they don't have experience. And his fear response, he tightened his grip on that throttle, and he obviously was unable to locate the brake or figure out how to let go of the throttle. And he was accelerating down a very short driveway, and he knew not to go into the county road, which, intersected with the driveway. He'd been told that many, many times in his lifetime. And he had no option but to turn, and he did that at a high rate of speed. He had no gear. The tires slid, clipped the edge of the asphalt, caused that ATV to flip up into the air, and, it came down, and Logan suffered a massive head injury.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very common fear response for a lot of different power sports, and not just in kids. I teach adults motorcycle safety classes, and without the repetition and the knowledge and the understanding, so many times when people get afraid, they grab that throttle even more instead of grabbing the clutch, letting go of the throttle. So I could definitely see how that would be a natural reaction for somebody that doesn't have the education.
What was interesting is, it was a horrifying situation. I was one of the first family members to arrive on the scene. And, it's so stunning that something like that could happen. Try not to get emotional here. It's so devastating. It really is. It's an awful situation. And for me, I was thinking, I just couldn't imagine how it even happened. I didn't understand how could this have happened? And that really spiraled me into trying to figure out how to prevent it from happening again. I think it's important to point out that when things like this occur, you don't just lose the child, you lose everybody that you love. My brother became totally different. His mother became different. My nieces and nephews became different people. We all shattered on that day. And so a tragedy like this that is so preventable, but it's so devastating, we wanted to know how do we stop it from happening again? And that really was what led me to try to figure out, well, what actually happened? And my biggest questions, the question that I have for me, and it's the question I, hope all of us never have to ask, and that is, what didn't I say? What didn't I do? And in order to figure out what that looked like, I had to know, well, what actually went wrong? Well, I don't ride. I've been involved in the sport for, at that time, 25 years as a consultant on the business side of things, but I don't participate in power sports myself. And so that led me on a long journey of uncovering, how do these things happen? It actually took me 4.5 years before I finally got the answers to what actually transpired. And once I knew what that was, and that I knew that there was a predictability to these things, that led me on it's been 13 years of hard research determining exactly what occurs. And once we have that, then we can teach people how to prevent that common cascade of fatal errors, because in the vast majority of these cases, there is a repetitive pattern of fatal errors that they're making, and it's not just one. They're making a series of fatal errors, and it is the same pattern over and over and over and over and over again. And so that's the message of the RideSafe Foundation. Our heart really is to reach children. Many people try to encourage us to focus on talking to adults because their natural reaction is, well, you need to talk to adults. And, that's true, but there's plenty of information available for adults to interact with, and adults choose to ignore that. And so the RideSafe Foundation does not spend time or money or resources trying to communicate with adults, because that is already happening. We focus on kids. And so my heart was just the thing that I still think of every single day when we go to events is, if Logan was right in front of me, what would we need to do to help Logan to fully understand what what would have protected him from that situation. And so that's what we focus on. We have a heavy collaboration with many experts in the field, and we create very large scale events. We go directly to children at schools and teach them about ATVs, UTVs, dirt bikes, snowmobiles, watercraft, e-bikes, and we fit every child with a helmet so they know what it feels like to have a helmet on their head that fits. And so we really have been accelerating our impact and our reach. But we have many, many alliances. We have our personal story, but this is a story that's impacted over 4,000 families. We've lost over 4,000 children in the United States to ATV and UTV related incidents. And that is children 15 and younger. So we're not even talking about children 16 to 19, because we can't track that data with any accuracy and have an accurate count. But we know that we've lost 4,000 children over that now in the United States since they started keeping records in the early 80s.
For people that may not follow the safety data closely, what are some current statistics when it comes to youth ATV or UTV injuries and fatalities?
On the fatality side of it, I can tell you that from January the 1st of 2020 through December 31st, 2025, we have lost 711 children that are 15 and younger. The American Academy of Pediatrics, they report anywhere from 40,000 to 55,000 children that are visiting the emergency room every year because of incidents just on ATVs and UTVs. So those are astronomical numbers. We also know that if there is an injury that has been assessed and identified, child comes into the ER, and yes, they're injured, the average cost of medical care for an injury is $274,000. But 27% of the children that are being admitted to the emergency room are being hospitalized, and the cost of medical care in those regards are in excess of $1.2 million. So the cost to care for these is astronomical. And the injury data that I just gave you, that is the official data that comes from the American Academy of Pediatrics. But that data comes from a government organization that is a sister organization to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and they pull their data from hospitals that they have relationships with, and then they extrapolate that data and they average it out over across the entire United States. And so the data that I just gave you, that 40,000 to 55,000, that is coming from 98 hospitals. There are over 6,000 hospitals in the United States. And so, and the data also comes from hospitals with a minimum of 6 beds and 24 hours of care, which quite obviously the vast majority of those hospitals are going to be in metropolitan areas. Well, that's not where these accidents are happening. So the reason I tell you that is there is a high likelihood, and some law enforcement agencies and trauma specialists we talk to, they believe those numbers are 2 to 3 times too low. They think there are far more people going to the ER, children, because of these incidents. And so what's so shocking is while those numbers are, they're really shocking numbers. The question is, well, what are we going to do about it? It's one thing to talk about what the problems are, and we do that because I've spent the time and I've done the research, and nobody has time to do the kind of research that we've done at the RideSafe Foundation. So we pull that data for you so that what we are hoping is that people go, wow, I had no idea. And then once they get that position, the next question is, well, what's the answer? What do we do? Because just telling people that there's a problem isn't the solution. The solution is then to go to the experts and figure out, well, how do we prevent these things? And so we've got many, many allies in that respect as well. But hopefully that helps you with some of the data.
Yeah, I mean, data is so time consuming and so complicated to even find and understand and analyze. So that alone is a huge feat, just for you to be able to do that and share that information. And of course, behind each of those numbers is, an actual child, an actual family impacted. And so sometimes we talk numbers and it just seems like a number, but when you really think about it, I mean, that could be somebody that you know. So yeah, that definitely puts it in perspective. Are there certain age groups that are most at risk within the youth population?
Well, we know that children represent 1 out of every 5 ATV or UTV related fatality. So to me, those are astronomical numbers. I mean, it's like children don't represent 1 out of every 5 snowmobile fatality, or 1 out of every 5 motorcycle fatality, or 1 out of every 5 boating accident. I mean, it's a disproportionate number. Now, we feel like we've got a handle on it. I mean, it's pretty obvious why that's happening. And there's something that I think nationally, and particularly as an industry, that we can all do to fix this problem. The first thing that I'll say is many people think that nobody's trying to solve this. That is far from true. Not only is that position wrong, it's actually causing the problem to continue, is to not recognize that the answer is sitting right in front of us. And so the question is where do we find the answer? And the answer lies within the industry itself. An example I always give is, think about a professional athlete. Professional athletes have mastered the art of safety. If they hadn't mastered the art of safety, they would never be able to do anything significant, let alone something great. So this is what's lost on the population. And I think it's lost on the industry at this point too. People are failing to recognize that your athletes, even amateur athletes and professional athletes, are your solution to this problem. They know how to ride. They learned how to ride, and they learned how to ride at the racetrack. What the industry has done is tried to create environments, certified safety instructors, and disperse them across the nation, thinking that people are going to be like, hey, great, I'm going to go, learn how to ride. Well, it's problematic for a couple of reasons. While the industry with the ATV Safety Institute and the Recreational Off-Highway Vehicle Association and many other organizations that have, instructors, we have law enforcement agents also that are certified. Those organizations, it's not that they're not trying to do something. They have limited budgets and limited staff. And the size and scale of the number of people that are riding today is unmanageable for a small group of people to be able to disseminate the proper message and the proper resources. I think more significantly also is we have certified safety instructors that are aging out. Many of them are in their late 70s or their early 80s. They're doing it solely on volunteer because there is no money in it. There are very few classes across the country, in spite of what people will lead you to believe, that are actually there. And there's certainly far fewer classes that are available for children under the age of 12. So I think it's important to recognize that of the data that I just gave you of the 711 children that have been fatally injured in the last 6 years in the United States, those children, 49% of them are 12 and younger. So the one of the very first things we have to look at as an industry is to recognize that this notion that everybody has in their head, children don't ride. My child doesn't ride. That is an absolute, that is not what the data supports. We've trained over 26,700 children in the last 2.5 years. And I am here to tell you that over 90% of every child that we have ever interacted with reports to us that either they are operating these vehicles or they're riding as passengers. So that is, first of all, this is the source of the problem. So now we have all these young children, 4 years old, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that are operating vehicles or or riding as passengers. Now, where are they going to get training?
Well, and they're not even, mature enough to know that they need training or what training is or how to access it. That's the parents' responsibility in that situation. So.
But parents don't know either. And even if parents do know that, they don't have any idea where to go. And this is my point. So we have this mass proliferation of equipment. So let's go back to this, 49% of these children are 12 and younger. Well, little known fact here, the vast majority of certified safety instructors in the United States are not insured to train children under the age of 12. It's my understanding that ATV Safety Institute, although I'm not a spokesperson for them, the ATV certified safety instructors can train children under the age of 12. They do have insurance that covers them, but there are many more people that are instructors that simply cannot train kids under the age of 12. They're not covered to do it. So what we have created here by, we've got accessibility is everywhere. People's children are riding. There are no certified safety classes for these kids, virtually none. There's a few here and there. And literally what's happening is we're relying on these children to figure it out on their own. Well, there's no ability, to your earlier point, there's no ability for people to make a proper calculated risk assessment. How is an adult who was not born into racing, was not learning at the track how to master the art of safety, where are they going to acquire that information? They are only making a decision based on, they're calculating risk out of complete ignorance. They have no idea that it takes skill and training and that there is a learning trajectory. And so people are just very cavalier. And in fact, we have many parents who they're bragging that their young children are operating adult-sized vehicles. Well, this is the factor that is most disturbing. 97% of all of the children, 4,000 children in the United States, 97% of them were on adult-sized machines. Well, just think about that for a second. It's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, that means, you might be like, well, great, then I need to go get a youth-sized machine. Well, back up for a second, because what you have to think about is, well, why is an adult-sized machine causing the injury or the fatality? Well, it's because it's the weight of the machine. Okay, if you're not thinking about the fact that these machines weigh anywhere from 500 to, in some cases now, over 3,000 pounds, and you're putting a little baby, a child, on a machine like that, and they're not properly buckled in, and they have no helmet or whatever, if something goes wrong, it's the weight of the machine that is doing the damage. And so I hear people say, well, here's a machine, like if you're 12 and under, don't ride that one. If you're 6, okay, fine. But, could we not talk about weight? And then once you think about weight, it's like, okay, well, what do I need to do to make sure my child doesn't end up outside of this vehicle when it crashes, like in the cases of side-by-sides? because they're putting kids in these side-by-sides without seatbelts, without helmets. I mean, we had an accident in Arkansas. I don't know if you saw that, but, the mom and dad packed 7 of their children, 7 of them, in the back of a side-by-side. And, there was a bad accident and both parents were fatally injured, and 3 of those children ended up in the intensive care, and the rest of them were sent to the hospital additionally. I mean, that's one case, but it's not uncommon. I actually see it at the racetrack a lot. If we see people at the racetrack pile their whole families into these machines, and they're like, it's no big deal. That's fine. It probably isn't a big deal until the child goes and tries to operate the vehicle when you're not there, because you've been instilling in the child that it's okay for them not to have a seatbelt, not to have a helmet, which is, one of the major contributing factors to these events. So people just aren't thinking. They just, when you tell them that, they're like, oh, wow, I never even thought of that. And that's the big problem we have. How are you going to get people's attention enough to be able to share with them the key details that they need to start paying attention to? And it's simple to rectify it. Pretty simple. What do we do? Well, you know what? I'll tell you exactly what I think the answer is. And I think it's staring us all right in the face. Who's insured to train kids? Who is? The racetrack. Okay, the racetracks have children that are 4, 5, and 6. And not only that, the racetracks teach helmets, goggles, gear, throttle control, repetition. And we have all these racetracks and all these athletes that are not being utilized to solve this problem. But that, to me, that's where the answer will come from, is the industry itself. People in the industry have such a heart to want to solve this problem, but they haven't been able to figure out what the solution is. Even people locally, they've got limited resources. They do the best they can. But, the consumers are like, yeah, I probably don't need that.
I think it is a very different mindset between families that race and families that just have these products recreationally. And like you said, the racers are taking somewhat calculated risk. They learned how to ride to be safer so they can continue to do it, versus some of the recreational families, it's just something they do on the weekend. Maybe they use it for work, and they might, this is my assumption, they might assume that racing is actually more dangerous, that high speeds.
That's exactly
and all that stuff.
You're exactly
and
right.
That, I'm just riding around the farm or my house or in the woods, and I'm only going 10 miles an hour. But
you're exactly right.
The awareness and the training and the skill is just not the same.
You're exactly right. So this is, I will tell you, I've had many conversations recently, actually, of people trying to ban ATVs and ban UTVs, and, all these, there's people that are like, hey, never let a child get on an ATV. I get it. I get that. And there's 2 things that happen. Number one, people are trying to ban them outright, or ban children using them. And their mentality is, well, if I just stop the child from riding it, ban children, or they should outright ban them altogether. And what they don't realize is that's absolutely the exact wrong thing to do. Okay. So the fact is that these machines are everywhere. They're a regular part of our lives. I do want to point out that, the vast majority of people who are operating these machines aren't getting injured, and they're not being fatally injured. I mean, we've had over 20,000 fatalities in the United States. The vast majority of those are males 50 and over. They represent almost a third of those incidents. So, but like in the state of Wisconsin, for example, we have 538,000 registered riders in the state of Wisconsin. We had 41 fatalities in Wisconsin last year. 21 of those were alcohol related. So, I mean, and the number of injuries that it's a bad number because it's one of the highest in the country right now for fatalities, but we also have the highest registrations exponentially by far. I mean, 538,000 registered riders in the state of Wisconsin. Now, you don't want to lose any of them. So, the question becomes, you're hitting on something so important here. People want to blame the industry. They want to say, well, it's, stop them from riding because the industry, just ban the machines. This is a bad idea. First of all, you're too late because everybody's got the machines. But, and I was there too. I wanted, when Logan first, after his accident, the very first thing you want to do is you want to blame somebody. It's just where your heart is. You want, and because that's easy. If I can find somebody that I can point a finger at and say it's your fault, then I don't have to do anything. Okay? I don't have to do anything. It's your fault. And so this is what everybody wants to do. They just want to like, oh, I'm going to solve the problem. Well, because everybody has such limited time and resources, the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to point a finger and try to blame somebody. Well, I'm telling you, I went looking to find somebody to blame. And what I actually discovered is that, I'm not saying that there are zero bad actors in the world, but they're so few and far between that where you actually find somebody who just doesn't care. That is so few and far between. They do exist, but they're very few and far between. The vast majority of people, whether it's salespeople, dealers, people that are working out in the industry, number one, they have no idea what these numbers are. They've never even heard of this stuff before. They know people are getting injured, but they didn't know the scale of it. Number two, their situation is, what do I do about it? And here's what we're hearing from dealers, particularly. They're gatekeepers, right? Like they're in a situation where somebody comes in, they buy the machine, and they try to have this conversation, and it's the consumers that are shutting them up. The consumers don't want to hear it. I've heard that multiple times. The dealers will say like, hey, we've tried to do this. We've had these conversations. And then the customer's like, yeah, I don't, whatever. I want this. And, and of course, there's all kinds of protections in place where for, not selling machines to young children, and the Consumer Product Safety Commission secret shops dealers, to death, apparently, because dealers are really exhausted over that issue. But what has happened is, going back to your point, we've got power sports enthusiasts, and then you have recreational riders. Okay, the industry's excellent at communicating safety to people who recognize that they are enthusiasts. They're excellent at that. There's all kinds of places and, resources and information, and everybody was willing to share. It's a wonderful, I've dedicated my life to motorsports and power sports. And listen, I don't even ride. And the reason I do that is because I find the best people I've ever met in my entire life are people who are in the motorsports and power sports industry. And so everybody's wonderful. They're family oriented. They love each other. They're charitably minded. They're just, they're people that do hard things. And particularly on the racing side of it. And they're also the people that, hey, if they say they're going to do something, they do it. They're brilliant. Like, it's exactly the fabric of our nation is built on people like this. I can only give you numbers from like 5 years ago because I don't know what the numbers are right now. But it used to be that 35% of all power sport vehicle owners considered themselves enthusiasts. All right, so that's 65% of people who bought it as a tool. This is my brother. He used it for, plowing snow or hauling firewood or whatever. The 65% that don't recognize themselves as enthusiasts, they're not plugging into the information that's available because they don't see themselves as enthusiasts. And the example I always give people is, hey, do you own a shovel? Do you own a shovel, Heather? Okay. So let me ask you, how many shovel publications are you subscribed to? How many shovel events do you go to? Okay, or let's use the ladder as an example. Do you have a ladder? Okay, so ladders are the deadliest thing I don't know if you know this or not, but the ladders are literally, if you go to the Consumer Product Safety Commission's website, ladders are literally, if not the most, but one of absolutely the deadliest things that you can have. So do you subscribe to ladder magazines? The answer to that is absolutely not, because you never think that this is going to occupy enough of your time and attention that you even care. And so so the industry as a whole has no ability to reach that 65% of consumers who don't see themselves as riders. It's a vehicle they own. And so while we have all these mechanisms in place, there's no way to find this nebulous blob of people that are riding that don't recognize themselves as enthusiasts. And so what do we do about that? I just listened to a guy the other day. He goes, oh, he's all proud of himself because he's like, hey, I don't go very fast. I only ride this thing around my farm. And so I don't wear a helmet. I don't wear a seatbelt. But hey, if I were going to get out on the trail, that's when I'd wear it. Well, I got news for you, buddy. That's not where the accidents are happening. They're happening on your farms. Okay. They're not happening on the trails. They're happening on your farms at speeds of less than 20 miles an hour. And so it's pretty simple. If you look at the cascade of fatal errors, what are the contributing factors? 97% of the child fatalities are on adult-sized machines. Okay. 95% of all children that were fatally injured in the United States had no training. They have no training, no safety certification, 95% of them. The third leading contributing factor is they have no helmet. 90% of them don't have a helmet. I mean, like do the math on that. Okay, so 4,000 children who've been fatally injured, multiply that times 90%. That means only 400 of those 4,000 children had helmets on. Do you think that you could literally not be in a situation where your family is at risk just by simply putting a helmet on? There's your answer. But you can't get people to do that because they don't think that they're in any danger. They don't think that they're doing anything dangerous. And they have no idea whether they're doing anything dangerous because they have no idea what's dangerous. This is the thing. This is the paradox. But the solution, and I'm glad you brought that up. This, and it is that differentiation between power sports enthusiasts and recreational riders, recreational owners. And by the way, keep in mind that a lot of this equipment is being sold on Facebook Marketplace or, at a, swap or whatever. There isn't a dealer there to, direct them to safety courses and those kinds of things.
Well, they're being sold at Lowe's and Tractor Supply and more non-traditional dealer, that aren't power sports employees or enthusiasts as well.
Yeah. And actually, so there's your answer. I mean, the answer really is to help people. And this is where we are. I mean, we're not trying to scare people. We're just trying to equip them because you don't have to be scared. Why are we not using our athletes to engage communities? They're traveling all over the country. They're at all these events. They're literally passing through the very same towns where these accidents are happening, and nobody's using these guys. Not only that, you have guys that have retired that would love to stay involved in the sport, and there's no system for them. What I'm a strong advocate for at this point is a couple of things. Early on in the process of this, we did a lot, in which I've spent a lot of this time in this podcast now talking to you about what the problem is. And we do that. It's then you roll out of the town like, well, I don't know. I'm just telling you what the problem is. Don't do these things. But that's not good enough. Okay. And even when we go in and do large scale events, when we can train, we bring in partnership with game and fish wardens, law enforcement, whether it's sheriff, county sheriff, state patrol. We, have trauma specialists, certified safety instructors, professional athletes. We have a heavy lift. We go into communities. There's nobody that you talk to and you say, hey, do you want to come and participate in this event? We're going to train kids today. They don't go, no. They're like, yes, absolutely. Where do you want me? Okay, so because people care about kids and people care about adults as well. But so this is what we do. We go in and we do basic clinical instruction, 10 minutes of basic clinical instruction with certified safety instructors, law enforcement officers, or professional athletes doing the instruction on, and every child in a district that we go into will do ATVs, 10 minutes of that. Then they rotate and they get 10 minutes of basic clinical instruction on UTVs, 10 minutes of dirt bike training, 10 minutes of snowmobile training in the north. It's e-bikes in the south now. And then 10 minutes of training on water, whether that's personal watercraft, pontoon boats, speed boats, whatever the community brings, they train on that. And then they rotate and we fit every single one of those children with a helmet. So we put a helmet on their head and go, hey, honey, does that fit? Listen, here's how you figure out whether this fits you or not. And here's why it's important. And buckle the chin strap. And we teach them how to buckle the chin strap. And that is a major undertaking because we have to have one instructor for every 5 kids for helmets. So anyway, the point is that, we've got this massive lift but even after we do all of that, okay. And we, let me pick on like Ashland, Wisconsin, for example, we just did 1,200 kids there, in the spring of last year. And the thing is once we do it, we roll out of town and we're like, well, I hope you guys were listening. Good luck. Bye. Cause there's nothing there. Now they're like, they know what they're supposed to do and they want to go ride. They want to have a place to go ride. They want to have, all these wonderful people in the power sports industry that mentor other people. That doesn't even exist there. So where are they supposed to go? Are they supposed to watch a video? Or I mean, like, this is the problem. We communities have not equipped people to have places that are safe where they can learn to ride, because people are trying to ban these things, which is the counterintuitive problem. It's don't kids under this age should never ride? Well, okay, let's say you take that position. If your attitude is that a child should never ride, well, first of all, they are riding. I got news flash. They are riding, or they're riding as passengers, or they're operating the vehicles. But what happens when they turn 16? You think like all of a sudden they're magically going to know how to ride? No. Now they think that they know how to ride, and they think they need to be brave, and they got an ego attached to it. And now they're getting on adult-sized machines, which weigh a ton, and they're doing crazy things. So all you're going to be doing is you're moving the injury and fatality data for the young kids into the 16 and older category, because you haven't provided any training. And so, culturally, that's the shift. It's like, I feel like we have a world of wonderful athletes that have mastered the art of safety. Hubert Rowland is our co-founder. He is deeply involved in the creation, development of stunts, and has been doing it for over 30 years in partnership with Travis Pastrana and the crew at Nitro Circus. And, as you know, BRP is our major partner. And they, the thing is that they understand. And they're like, hey, we've got these resources. How can we help you do this? Now, all of these people that are so full of knowledge, the communities don't recognize that the answer is the very thing that they're accusing as being the problem. They're not the problem. They're the answer. It's quite literally I hope everybody has the same level of epiphany and aha moment that I have had after going through and realizing, like, hey, we can do only a certain amount, and then we're going to roll out of town. And now what are you going to do? You still have to find people that are experts, that understand safety, and that enjoy it. And if you are trying to discourage that, you now don't have. It's like you've now eliminated the very solution.
And it has to be an ongoing conversation too. To your point, one touch point is great, but it's only one touch point, and it has to have follow up and continual kind of social and cultural buy-in to it over and over again. I mean, my parents were always very safety minded about us riding dirt bikes as kids and then riding street bikes as I got older. But we were a power sports family. So again, for that huge demographic, that 65% that isn't, that's a real challenge to reach them. And I think going into the schools, like you said, is a huge win, because you're reaching a much larger demographic than just going to power sports events or focusing on power sports families. So yeah, that's really cool that you've been able to do that.
Well, thank you. There's nothing great about me. We had a family tragedy, and my heart I've always been this way. Like, I care about people. If I know something awful has happened, I am going to do whatever it takes to not, see somebody go through that. It's just a natural thing. Because I'd been in the industry for 25 years at the time of Logan's fatality, I recognized that I was uniquely positioned to do something about it because of the relationships I have. And while there were a lot of things I didn't understand, there's a lot of things I've come to know. I definitely recognize that if we've all built this incredible network of amazing events and this wonderful lifestyle of power sports where people can get out and explore this great country that we live in with all these incredible places and bring places to people they were never able to go to, and have camaraderie and friendship and stories and time together. And, to be on that wonderful adventure. I mean, thank God for the OEMs who have manufactured these incredible vehicles that allow us to do that. But that vast network of people that we've been able to invite into it, they are truly the ones with the answer. I mean, you have the greatest, like 60 helmets, for example, the knowledge and technology that they have about helmets and about brain injury and traumatic brain injury and how to prevent it. They're the experts, or fly racing or Thor or, any of the helmet manufacturers. They have a knowledge that, it's not like, oh, hey, I think I'm just going to go create a helmet. I mean, they think of the amount of time and effort and technology and product development and testing and all of the accidents they've experienced throughout the course of their career. I tell people all the time, hey, never in the history of the world have we ever had better gear. Never. So and it's taken so lightly, like it's like it doesn't have any value. I had an interesting conversation with one of the helmet manufacturers, and he said that as this was about 2 years ago, he said as UTV sales climb, helmet sales are going down. Well, so we this talking about adults, we work with law enforcement, and we're on the scenes of these accidents, and they flat out tell us, listen, well, okay, let's say you don't have a helmet on in a side by side, and you think like, well, I don't need one. I don't need one. Okay, well, why don't you need one again? Oh, because I'm in a side by side. Okay, so you can't smack your head on the roll bar. Like, you don't think that's possible, or you don't think like your head can go if you roll, like your head's gonna crack out the window. People just don't, they have this, they're lulled into this idea that this is easy to do. I'm not saying that, these things are complicated, but there is a learning curve. And, there are guys that have been riding, or women that have been riding for 30 years that have a lot to learn. And where are you going to go to get that information? It's the industry. The industry is this beautiful place. So the question is how do we help leverage that? For us at the RideSafe Foundation, we not only do we do events, I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of years working with people that have solutions. One of the biggest things I feel that we need in this country is I feel like we need programming that's geared towards kids, because nothing exists. We've had a production company that we spent quite a bit of time with out of New York that's created an animated pilot. You can find that on our YouTube channel. It's called Jack's Wild Ride. They invested in time and development to create an animated series that's geared for children 4 to 12. We have an opportunity to create 12 unique episodes, but we have no partners to do that. And the RideSafe Foundation, it's not our business to go and get something like that funded, because that does not benefit the RideSafe Foundation. And we can't, for us to take our resources at the RideSafe Foundation and go and try to create the actual solution, we're not in a position to do that. But until somebody wants to go raise $120,000, which is what it's going to take to develop a series, but that's all it takes. And so, it seems like a lot of money, but is it? Because if an injury is $74,000, why can't we raise $120,000 to produce a series that suddenly children all across the nation and the world could watch this in their, at home, or when they're with their grandparents, which, by the way, the vast majority of children that are injured are with their grandparents. I hate to tell you that, and it's not because their grandparents don't love their kids. They just literally don't understand. And how many mothers I've talked to, or grandmothers I've talked to, whose hearts are absolutely shattered and broken, and they cannot stop crying because their babies have been fatally injured. And they keep saying the same thing. Why didn't anybody tell me? Why didn't I know that? And so, I feel like it's just simple things. So anyway, there's the animated series, I think, is one thing that I think it's an easy solution. I think, but again, the RideSafe Foundation can't fund that. And we also, can't allocate our resources to go out and try to find people to fund it. But nobody has picked that mantle up.
For individuals, schools, companies that want to support the RideSafe Foundation mission, what are some ways that they can partner? How can they get in touch with you, whether it's via your website or social media?
Well, we do have a Facebook page. This is where we predominantly, I'm pretty vocal on there. Like, if I see trends, I communicate there, but you can find us on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm probably most vocal on LinkedIn on the issue of safety and just the trends that we see. So it's a really great resource to follow me on LinkedIn, because you'll get the reports, you'll get the analysis of the state, and you can email and message me there. My email is kristen@ridesafefoundation.org. So you can contact me that way. And there's an opportunity for people to subscribe to our newsletter on our website also. And, but I welcome it. I think, people can give to the RideSafe Foundation. There's a donation button there. We have nothing in place to lead a mass campaign to raise money for the RideSafe Foundation. But if we had those resources, we could do a lot more. We could hire a lot more project managers. We could do a lot more in a lot of states. But again, we aren't leading some big initiative to go and raise funds. We are in the business of going and training kids with the core partnerships that we have who fund what we do. So Uh, if companies or individuals are interested in supporting what we do, I just love to chat with them. One of the things that I feel that we should be doing at the RideSafe Foundation is simply to equip communities to have conversation. That's all we're trying to do. Like, I'm trying to give people the tools and the resources so that they can have the conversation themselves, so that I don't have to, I can only be so many places. And so it's not possible for me to speak with people in every community. But if we have resources that can be disseminated, we need people to distribute that. To me, utility companies, gas companies, electric companies, grocery stores, convenience stores, to your point, Farm and Fleet, or, Tractor Supply, or any of these farm implement stores, they have the customers that are using this equipment. And they are in a position to communicate with those people about what we have on our website, the 5 red flag warnings, which are the 5 leading causes of child injury and fatality, the 5 leading contributing factors. Like, grab that, share that with people, tell people what it is. But yeah, we'd love to speak with people and come up with a plan.
Yeah. And for anybody that's just looking for resources as a parent, as a grandparent, a family member, obviously check out the website as well. And I'll be sure to link that in the show notes. But Kristen, I really appreciate you joining me. Definitely a hard topic to talk about at times, especially when you've been so personally impacted. So thank you for everything that you've done for the foundation and for the industry and, families in general.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and share it with people, Heather. And I'm available. I tell people, don't be afraid to call me or text me or email me. I'm never too busy. I want to hear, and we want to help.
All right. Well, thank you. And thanks to everybody for tuning in to Momentum. This has been a production of High Gear Success. If you want to connect or recommend a guest, head to MomentumMotorsportsPodcast.com. Until next time, keep the momentum rolling.